access controlled by a special team of US personnel. Again, Congresswoman, this is something that, as far as I understand, no other company, including American companies, are willing to go. So maybe this is something that we can ask the industry to provide, not just us, to protect
in
US
the
user
case of
interests.
sharing information, I do want to quote from employees that you had, and here's the quote, everything is seen in China, is really what they said. People who were in touch with the sensitive data were saying that. How do you respond to that?
I disagree with that statement.
Well, I know you disagree with that statement, but my point is, how does that happen that employees of the company are saying that, in fact, that's not true?
I cannot speak to, I don't know who this person is, so I cannot speak to what the person has or has not said. What I can say is, based on my position in this company and the responsibility that I have, that statement is just not true.
Okay, unfortunately, and I'll close, I guess I'm over my time, we need to look into the facts of this, and so do you. And I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair recognizes the lady from Florida, Ms. Kamek, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Shou, are you aware of Chinese Communist Party leader Chairman Xi Jinping's comments in May 2021 during a Communist Politburo study session where he instructed colleagues to target different countries, different audiences with short form video? Are you aware of these comments? Yes or no?
Congressman, I'm not aware of these comments.
Okay. Well, and as was pointed out by Chairwoman Rogers, you have regular contact with Chinese Communist Party Secretary, Mr. Zhang Fuping, who is your boss at ByteDance, correct?
No.
No.
No, he's
Interesting.
neither my boss, nor do we have frequent contact.
But you have regular contact with ByteDance,
With the CEO of ByteDance.
who is Mr. Zhang Fuping is the
He's not.
editor-in-chief.
He's not the
My
CEO.
colleague, Representative Burgess, a few minutes ago exposed that TikTok and ByteDance share legal teams. You confirmed this, correct?
Our general counsel is
Yes.
an
Yes or
American lawyer,
Yes.
veteran of Microsoft.
Also, my
Many
colleague, Representative Latta, confirmed that your parent company, ByteDance, currently can access user data. Yes?
we have to be more
Yes.
specific.
Yes.
After
You
Project
say-
Texas, no.
I'm not asking after Project Texas, I'm asking now. Yes.
Some user data is public data, Congresswoman, which
So
means
you
everybody
confirm that.
can search
What's
for it on the
interesting to
internet.
me is that you have used the word transparency over a half a dozen times in your opening testimony and subsequently again in your answers to my colleagues. Yet the interesting thing to me is that ByteDance, your parent company, has gone out of their way to hide an airbrush corporate structure ties to the CCP, the company's founder, and their activities. You can look no further than the fact that ByteDance website has been scrubbed. In fact, we found web pages from the Beijing Internet Association, the industry association charged with Communist Party building work of internet companies in Beijing. They have been archived, but since deleted. Makes you kind of wonder why. Yes or no, ByteDance is required to have a member of the Chinese government on its board with veto power. Is that correct?
No, that is not correct. ByteDance owns some Chinese businesses, and you're talking about this very special subsidiary that is
Mr.
for
Shou,
Chinese business licensing.
Mr. Shou,
purposes.
I'm going to have to move on. You've said repeatedly that there is no threat, that this is a platform for entertainment and for fun. I have to ask you then, if there is no threat to Americans, if there is no threat to our data, privacy, security, why did an internal memo from TikTok corporate headquarters explicitly coach senior management to, quote, downplay the parent company ByteDance? Why would they say downplay the China Association and downplay AI? This is from an internal memo from your company. Why, if you had nothing to hide, would you need to downplay the association with ByteDance in China?
Congresswoman, I have not seen this memo.
You can't
What I
answer
can
that
say-
question. Mr. Shou, I'd like to direct your attention to the screen for a short video, if you don't mind. Mr. Show, that video was posted 41 days ago. As you can see, it is captioned me as F at the House Energy and Commerce Committee on March 23rd of this year. This video was posted before this hearing was publicly noticed. I think that's a very interesting point to raise. But more concerning is the fact that it names this chairwoman by name. Your own community guidelines state that you have a firm stance against enabling violence on or off TikTok. We do not allow people to use our platform to threaten or incite violence or to promote violent extremist organizations, individuals, or acts. When there is a threat to public safety or an account is used to promote or glorify off-platform violence, we ban the account. This video has been up for 41 days. It is a direct threat to the chairwoman of this committee, the people in this room, and yet it still remains on the platform. And you expect us to believe that you are display people who use TikTok are. You couldn't take action after 41 days when a clear threat, a very violent threat to the chairwoman of this committee and the members of this committee was posted on your platform. You damn well know that you cannot protect the data and security of this committee or the 150 million users of your app because it is an extension of the CCP. And with that, I yield back.
Can I respond, Chair?
Well, we're going to move on. Gentlelady yields back. Chairman recognizes the lady from California, Ms. Matsui, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I'm really glad that we're having this very important hearing here today. And let me just say, make no mistake, the Chinese government represents a real and immediate threat. Look no further than even the vulnerable gear still in our telecom networks that needs to be ripped and the vulnerable gear still in our telecom networks that needs to be ripped and replaced. But we can't lose sight of the important internet governance issues TikTok and other social media companies represent. I'm especially committed to demanding transparency from large platforms about the algorithms that shape our online interactions, especially for teenagers and young users. And that's why I introduced the Algorithmic Justice and Online Platform Transparency Act to bring greater visibility into this ecosystem. My bill would prohibit algorithms that discriminate on the basis of race, age, gender, ability, and other protected characteristics. It also would establish a safety and effectiveness standard for algorithms while requiring new forms of oversight. Now, this bill would require online public reports detailing their content moderation practices, which I believe should be a baseline requirement to enable meaningful oversight and consumer choice. Mr. Chu, just yes or no, do you believe a requirement for annual content moderation practices for social media platforms would be beneficial? Yes or no?
Yes.
This transparency bill would also require online platforms to maintain detailed records describing their algorithmic process for review by the Federal Trade Commission in compliance with key privacy and data identification standards. Mr. Chu, does TikTok currently maintain records describing their algorithm? Over the past few years, alarming information brought to light by whistleblowers have shown that social media companies are intimately aware of the effect their products have on young women, political extremism, and more. Despite this, they withheld those studies or declined to investigate further. In either case, it shows a pattern evasive or negligent behavior that I find concerning and extreme. Mr. Chu, does TikTok conduct its own studies on the effect of its algorithms and content distribution models on mental health or safety? And if so, how and when are those findings made public? And if not, do you believe they are necessary?
Congresswoman, we rely on external third parties and fund their research to help us understand some of these issues. For example, we worked with the Digital Wellness Lab at the Boston Children's Hospital to understand the 60-minute time limit that we put for all our under 18 users. And we are supportive of legislation that provides more funding for research, like, for example, for the NIH.
Okay. TikTok tailors its recommended content based on user activity to encourage people to spend more time on the app. While this practice is by no means unique to TikTok, given the prevalence of young users and the digestible nature of short-form video, I'm concerned about the app's tendency to exacerbate existing mental health challenges. Mr. Chu, does TikTok have different policies for amplifying content that would be related to depression or dieting versus content like gardening and sports? If yes, describe these policy differences. If no, why not?
Congresswoman, thank you for that. This is a great question. The answer is yes. We are trying out some policies together with experts to understand certain contents that are not too much. And these are models that we're building, and we are trying to understand, together with experts, how to best implement them across our platform, particularly for younger users,
Okay,
under
so
18. Yeah.
in cases where users have been engaging with potentially harmful content, I believe it's imperative that the app takes steps to moderate that behavior rather than continuing to promote it. I mean, in a sense,
I
very
apologize.
intentional about that.
I wasn't clear. First, anything that is violative and harmful, we remove. What I meant to say were content that is not inherently harmful. Like some of the extreme fitness videos about people running 100 miles. It's not inherently harmful, but if we show them too much, the experts are telling us that we should disperse them. Harmful, but if we show them too much, the experts are telling us that we should disperse them more and make sure that they're not seen too regularly,
So
especially
you're
by
very
younger users.
intentional about that then. It's something that you'll
We are working on it,
moderate.
yes. Yeah.
You're working on it?
Yes.
Okay. I yield back.
Jenny, gentle lady yields back. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Bill Rockus, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it very much. Thanks for holding this hearing. Mr. Chu, your algorithms have prioritized providing harmful content directly to children, like self-harm challenges and even suicide. Just 3 days ago, Italy opened an investigation into the TikTok over user safety concerns after the so-called French scar challenge went viral on your platform. I know you know about the blackout challenge, which others may know as the choking challenge that encourages children to bring them to the point of unconsciousness. If that isn't enough, I want to share the story of Chase Nasca, a 16-year-old boy from New York who tragically ended his life a year ago by stepping in front of a train. I want to thank his parents. Again, they are here. I want to thank his parents for being here today and allowing us to show this. Mr. Chu, your company destroyed their lives. Your company destroyed their lives. I admire their courage to be here and share Chase's story in the hopes that it will prevent this from happening to other families. The content in Chase's was not a window to discovery, as you boldly claimed in your testimony. It wasn't content from a creator that you invited to roam the hill today, or STEM education content that children in China see. Instead, his For You page was sadly a window to discover suicide. It is unacceptable, sir, that even after knowing all these dangers, you still claim TikTok is something grand to behold. I want you to see what Chase would see. And I think if you want, again, would you share this content with your children, with your 2 children? Would you want them to see this? And again, I want to warn everyone watching that you may find this content disturbing, but we need to watch this. please.
Narrative. You gotta kill yourself.
Oh, word?
Find this content disturbing, but we need to watch this, please.
Narrative. You gotta kill yourself.
Oh, word? Like right now?
And then I'm gonna put a shotgun in my mouth and blow the brains out of the back of my head.
Cool.
This is a cute story. My brother, who is addicted to painkillers, blew his head off on the State Street Bridge. Bam! Now hold on, it gets better. No letter, no goodbye, nothing.
Got a question. If I died, would you miss me?
Mr. Chu, please. Your technology is literally leading to death. Mr. Chu, yes or no? Do you have full responsibility for your algorithms used by TikTok to prioritize?
This is
Sir,
tragic.
yes or no? I'll repeat the question. Do you have full responsibility over the algorithms used by TikTok to prioritize content to its users? Yes or no, please?
Congressman, we do take these issues very seriously,
Yes or no?
and we do provide resources for anyone who types in anything that
Sir,
is suicide
yes or
related.
no? I see you're not willing to answer the question or take any responsibility for your parents' companies, the technology, and the harms it creates. It's just very, very sad. Very sad.
It's very sad.
This is why Congress needs to enact a comprehensive privacy and data security law to give Americans more control over their information and to protect our children. We must save our children from big tech companies like yours who continue to abuse and manipulate them for your own gain. And I'll yield back, Madam Chair.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes the lady from Florida, Ms. Castor, for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, it is urgent that the Congress pass an online data privacy law that protects the personal privacy of Americans online, and particularly our kids. While this hearing shines a light on TikTok, this hearing also should serve as a call to action for the Congress to act now to protect Americans from surveillance, tracking, personal data gathering, and addictive algorithmic operations that serve up harmful content and has a corrosive effect on our kids' mental and physical well-being. For many years, I've sounded the alarm in this committee of how big tech platforms like TikTok and Facebook and Instagram incessantly surveil, track, gather personal private information, and use it along with data brokers to target and influence our behavior. This is a much broader issue than TikTok in China. There are other malign actors across the world who gather data to use it as an element of social control and influence peddling and worse. And as I detailed in this committee last year when we passed our online privacy law, the harms to children are very serious and demand swift action. Big tech platforms profit immensely from keeping children addicted. They do not care about the privacy, safety, and health of our kids. They are the led Congress, and it took action by the Congress to actually protect our kids and to outlaw smoking by young people. In early 2020, based upon the growing body of evidence to harm to kids online, I introduced the Kids Privacy Act and the KIDS Act. And I want to thank all of the researchers, the young people, the parents, the Surgeon General of the United States who have explained the correlation between social media usage and body dissatisfaction, disordered eating habits, anxiety, depression, suicide ideation, and cyberbullying. Heck, Frances Haugen, the Facebook whistleblower, was right here and testified to us that Facebook and Instagram conducted research on this topic. They knew and understood the harms, but they continued to elevate profits over the well-being of children. And TikTok does the same. Last Congress, when we passed the ADPPA, the committee incorporated many of these important child online privacy and safety provisions from my bills. But we can make the 118th Congress's version of this bill, of this new law, even more protective of children. And I look forward to working with the chair and the ranking member to make that happen. Mr. Chu, TikTok has incredible sway over children in the U.S. But you don't have a very good track record. Was hit with the largest civil penalty by the Federal Trade Commission in a children's privacy case. 4 years later, TikTok still has not taken sufficient action to fix the problems. I assume because child users are incredibly profitable to your bottom line. So answer me this. TikTok allows advertisers to specifically target advertising to children aged 13 to 17, correct?
Congresswoman, I do want to disagree
Yes
with the
or no?
statement that child
Yes.
abuses are not allowed on our
Just
platform
yes
at
or
all. It's
no?
deplorable
Do you
conduct
do you
and it's not
target-
allowed on our
do you
platform.
target advertising to young people aged 13 to 17.
We do serve personalized
Okay, thank
advertising
you.
at this point,
And
but the
how
policies
much
are very
money-
safe for
How
them.
much money does TikTok make selling ads targeted to minors?
Congresswoman, can I clarify minors in what age?
From just say age 13 to 17.
For the teenage population, I want to clarify that we do have a under 13 experience and they have zero. For those
Well, that's a whole other topic.
between 13 and 17, if you don't mind, I'll get back to you on those answers.
You know, TikTok could be designed to minimize the harm to kids, but a decision was made to aggressively addict kids in the name of profits. And it's our responsibility, members, to act swiftly to address this. This has gone on for too long. We've dilly-dallied too much. This committee, thankfully, we've taken responsibility and acted, but we have an enormous responsibility to act swiftly and get this bill to the floor of the House and passed into law as soon as possible. Thank you. I yield back my time.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Johnson, for 5 minutes.
I'm an information technology professional, been doing it for the most of my life. You've been evasive in many of your answers. I'm going to talk to you in some language that maybe you'll better understand, ones and zeros, okay? Let's talk about the Citizen Lab report. This is something your team frequently mentions in hearings as a way to exonerate yourself. For example, in the limitations section, it reads, we could not examine every source code component and test in the apps in every circumstance, which means our methods could not find every security issue, privacy violation, and censorship event. So it's an incomplete assessment. The report notes that TikTok's data collection using third-party trackers was in apparent conflict with the GDPR and that multiple themes were censored by TikTok. What is shocking to me is the shared source code between TikTok in the United States and the CCP-censored Douyin. The Citizen Labs report says that many of the functions and classes were identical and that the differences in behavior. Citizen Labs report says that many of the functions and classes were identical and that the differences in behavior between TikTok in the United States and Douyin in China are slight changes in hard-coded values. Incredibly, specific censorship parameters from Douyin are present in TikTok, but just turned off. The authors say that for unknown reasons, the parameter variable itself is preserved. So while Citizen Lab may have been afraid to say the obvious conclusion, Mr. Chu, I am not. TikTok's source code is riddled with backdoors and CCP censorship devices. Here's the truth. In 1 million lines of code, the smallest shift from a 0 to a 1 on just one of thousands of versions of TikTok on the market will unlock explicit CCP censorship and access to American data. Mr. Chu, as CEO of TikTok, why have you not directed your engineers to change this source code?
Congressman, thank you for the question.
Have you directed them to change the source code? Have you directed your engineers to change that source code?
I'm not sure I understand.
Why are you allowing TikTok to continue to have the capacity for censorship, and yet you claim here that you don't? Let me
It
remind
doesn't.
you of something. Do you realize that making false and misleading statements to Congress is a federal crime?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So have you directed your engineers to change that source code?
I am giving third-party access monitoring by experts and Congressman.
The Congress is a federal crime?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So have you directed your engineers to change that source code?
I am giving third-party access monitoring by experts and Congressman, you are an expert on this. You
What
could agree with me
percentage
that no
of
other company
TikTok
does
source
this.
code is the same as Dolan? What percentage?
I can get back to you on the specifics.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. Where was the source code for TikTok developed? Was it developed in China or in the United States?
It's a global collaborative effort. Like a lot of code for a lot of companies.
Was it developed in China? Some of it?
Some of it is.
Okay, at ByteDance. When it's compiled in the compilation process, can bytecode be manipulated? We've talked a lot about source code. What about the bytecode, the ones and zeros that actually execute on the device? Can it be manipulated? Yes.
Congressman, to give you comfort, that's why we're giving third-party monitors.
Yes,
As an expert, I think you can agree that very few companies
I've got
offer
the
to do this.
report here by Citizen Lab. I want to read you something from Ron Diebert. Specifically, in your written testimony to Congress, you stated on page 9, Citizen Lab found that there was no overt data transmission by TikTok to the director of Citizen Lab saw this and issued a statement correcting the record yesterday. And I'm quoting Ron Diebert, the director of the lab. I am disappointed that TikTok executives continue citing the Citizen Lab's research in their statements to government as somehow exculpatory. I've called them out on this in the past, and it's unfortunate that I have to do it again, unquote. He goes on to say, and I quote, we even speculated about possible mechanisms through which the Chinese government might use unconventional techniques to obtain TikTok user data via pressure on ByteDance, end of quote. Mr. Chu, you sent Congress written testimony citing this lab as a support of your claim that China cannot access user data, US user data. And now this lab has come out to say, we never said that. That's misleading. Mr. Chu, I hope you understand what that is. And what that is. That's misleading. Mr. Chu, this is yet another instance of TikTok attempting to mislead Americans about what their technology is capable of and who has access to their information. Madam Chair, I'd like to
Madam Chair, I would like to respond to that
by
very
Ron
quickly,
Diebert
please.
and the Citizens Lab into the record.
Without objection.
With
so
that, I
ordered.
yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair yields to the gentleman from Maryland. Mr. Sarbanes, 5 minutes.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair. Mr. Chu, I'm going to pick up on a theme we've already covered here, which is the effect that your platform, along with many other social media platforms, by the way, has in terms of mental and behavioral health in this country. I won't speak to what's happening elsewhere in the world, but we've talked about the impact that it's having on children, on teens. We took some action last year in this committee to try to improve access to resources, reauthorize critical programs to address mental health needs, but we need to do even more than that. Forms that expose children, teens to additional risks. The more time that middle and high schoolers spend on social media, the evidence is the more likely they are to experience depression and anxiety, and this is particularly troubling since apparently 16% of American teenagers report that they use TikTok, quote, almost constantly. That's, I think, about 5 million teenagers in this country that are on TikTok all the time. And we know that big tech, including TikTok, uses design features that can manipulate users, including children and teens, to keep them engaged, designed to feed them a never-ending stream of content, keep their attention for hours on end. Which includes capitalizing on the desire for others' approval through like features, preying on the fear of missing out through push notifications and so forth. Again, you're part of an industry that's set up to do this. You, in some sense, don't appear to be able to help yourselves in reaching out and finding that new user and then holding on to them. TikTok itself has acknowledged that these features and others, like the endless scroll feature, can have an outsized effect on teens. And we've been discussing today how your app only intensifies that harm by amplifying dangerous content and misinformation. I don't want to be too paternalistic here because we have young people in the audience. We've got TikTok users that are watching this hearing, and I'm sure they have their own social media platforms. They like to access the platforms, and they should be able to do that safely. So it's certainly in their interest, and they can drive this conversation, I think, perfectly well. But it's not a fair fight, is it? I mean, the algorithms are on one side of the screen. The human brain is on the other side of the screen, drowning in these algorithms. In many instances, at an age where the brain's not even fully developed yet. So those addictive impulses are being sort of perfected by the technology, and again, it leaves the users sort of helpless in the face of that. Are you looking at ways to redesign core features like the ones I mentioned to be less manipulative, and addictive for users, and can you commit to making some of those modifications here today?
Congressman, thank you. We do want to be. Thank you. We do want to be leading in terms of safety of our users, particularly for teenagers. We were the first to launch a 60-minute watch limit.
Yeah, let's talk about the 60-minute launch.
And I'm very glad to see people, others in our industry follow. For many of your recommendations, we'll study them very seriously. Yeah. We actually have a series of features. Like, for example, if you're under 16, you cannot use a direct messaging feature because we want to protect those younger users. If you're under 16, you cannot go viral by default. If you're under 18, you cannot go live. And
let me go back to the 60-minute limit because my understanding is that teens can pretty easily bypass the notification to continue using the app if they want to. I mean, let's face it, our teens are smarter than we are by half, and they know how to use the technology and they can get around these limits if they want to. Are you measuring how many teens continue to exceed the 60 minutes of time on that app?
We understand
how that's working.
We understand those concerns. Our intention is to have the teens and their.
Let me ask you this question before I run out of time. If you concluded that putting some reasonable limits in place and trying to find a way to enforce them would lead some percentage of your users to leave TikTok and go somewhere else, is that something that you're prepared to accept?
Yes.
Really? Well, I'd love to get the research on how these limits are being implemented, how they're being bypassed, and the things that you're taking, the measures you're taking to address those issues going forward. Please bring that information back to our committee as we move forward.
I'll be happy to.
I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Guthrie, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for yielding. I appreciate the time. Mr. Chu, your terms of service specifically state that TikTok does, and I quote, not allow the depiction, promotion, or trade of drugs or other controlled substances. Despite this content being against your terms of service, and I brought this up with other service providers,